or Mexicans are rapists and criminals,
I'm telling
or
you.
John McCain's not a hero. He is showing you who he is.
Senator, you whipped out that Mexican thing again.
Here with us now, CNN political commentator Angela Rye, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Steve Cortez, a Trump surrogate and member of Donald Trump's Hispanic Advisory Council. Steve, what is that Mexican thing?
The Mexican thing is this, and that the left and that our opponents in this race continue to try to paint Donald Trump as a racist. And the reason they're doing that, I think, is twofold. Number one, they don't want to defend the status quo, and they are the candidacy of the status quo. I think number two, when you're intellectually bankrupt, when you don't have real ideas for growth and security, what do? This has been typical of the Democratic playbook. They always go back to name-calling, smearing, and they call us racist. This didn't begin with Donald Trump. It's happened every 4 years of my lifetime, and it's unfair and it's unfortunate, but the American people can see past it.
Did Donald Trump say when he announced he was running for president last June that Mexico is sending us rapists?
That some people who are illegally crossing clearly are, and that's indisputable. We know that among illegal aliens, there are some very dangerous people that we're not deporting, particularly in sanctuary cities. We know that that has horrible consequences for people like Katie Steinle, who was murdered in cold blood for simply walking along the bay with her father. So there are some really dangerous people. We love immigration, and we know that the vast majority of immigrants, particularly legal immigrants, are not in any way dangerous. Quite the opposite. They're a treasure to this country.
Right.
But there are dangerous illegal immigrants who need to be deported yesterday, and Donald Trump will make sure that happens day one of his presidency.
So, Angela, your take on this, your read on this, CNN commentator and Republican strategist Ana Navarro, she said the way she viewed it is that Mike Pence, that Tim Kaine Mateo Lapata, like Mike Pence Mateo Lapata, meaning that he stuck his foot in his mouth. Do you think that's just it, that line, or do you take it differently?
I think he gave us a read on where his heart really is. So we can blame the Democratic Party for calling out Trump's bigotry, Trump's apparent racism, and the fact that they think implicit bias is some type of a joke, right? We also heard that from Mike Pence last night. But here's the reality. There is racism in this country. That Mexican thing is a horribly dismissive way to with a whole swath of American culture, of our folks, of our people. I think it's horrible. And it's not only that he called Mexicans drug dealers and rapists, he also questioned whether or not a judge of Mexican heritage could be impartial in his case because he is in fact Mexican. All of that is highly problematic, and when you start to really peel back this onion, the fact of the matter is this racism, this xenophobia, this bigotry isn't just isolated to Donald Trump. You heard that from the vice presidential candidate as well last night. And the other guy who came on air saying, oh, well, if we keep this going, we're going to have taco trucks on every corner. Guess what, Kate and John? Deal me in. I will take a chicken taco, please.
Angela, I couldn't agree with you more. Taco trucks on every corner sounds a little bit like heaven to me.
I hope you would deal with the other more serious aspects of what I said and recognize that your candidate
of course.
is highly
And what does what does not sound like heaven at all is the reality that most people of color have to live in this country. 1/3 of minority children in America live in poverty. That is a tragedy. And
do you know the figure for white kids?
And I believe it's 15%, right? It's about half that, or no, it's 10%.
No, I think your figures are slightly off, and I think that the real issue is why don't you all figure out...
my figures are not off. 1/3 of minority children live in poverty in this country, and that is a tragedy, and it is largely because of policy in this country, because far too many people of color live in neighborhoods where there's not enough economic opportunity because this expansion has been so sluggish, and on top of that, they go to failing public schools because the Democratic Party cares a lot more about teachers' unions than they do about really educated children.
So none of that is true. None of that is true.
It's all true, and what we are doing is telling people of color you have been exploited by the Democratic Party.
No, they've been exploited by racism. Racism is the problem. It's not Democratic policy, sir. That's just not true. And I think that you all
give you a path forward.
Hold on,
with you all continuing to put this at the feet of the Democratic. Instead of acknowledging, again, right, that institutional racism exists, that systemic bias and implicit bias exists, that is the real problem. That is at the root of what this country was founded upon, slavery. The fact that it was founded upon taking land from people who it did not belong to them, that is racism. And until we deal with the very foundation of how this country was established, you can continue to blame the Republican or Democratic Party.
Hold on a second.
Everybody in between.
Steve, you guys are both kind of talking about policy a little bit. Let's talk about one piece of policy I think that is an important important to bring up right now. Angela, the explainer-in-chief, as Barack Obama had deemed him, Bill Clinton, out on the trail campaigning. He had this to say about President Obama's signature legislative achievement, Obamacare. They called it the craziest thing in the world. That was Monday. Tuesday, yesterday, he seemed to try to clean it up, and he said that Obamacare did a whole world of good. But he isn't really backing down from the point of what he said. It was the craziest thing in the world. What does this do to the conversation?
Well, it definitely takes us in another direction, just kind of like this segment, Kate. I can't tell you that I agree with Bill Clinton. I can tell you personally that for me, my health care is a lot better. My premiums have gone down. And so I don't know what Bill Clinton is talking about. But listen, we know that whenever he has the opportunity to go out on the stump, you know that it's hit or miss. He's going to either be really good or he's going to be a real distraction. And unfortunately for us, he was a real distraction.
And the White House seemed to verify that they thought he was a distraction. Steve, we're going to rapid fire a couple other points here that are interesting. Bill Weld, the number 2 candidate on the Libertarian ticket, did an interview with the Boston Globe where he essentially said he's going to spend the rest of the campaign trying to stop Donald Trump. What do you make of that?
You know, what I make of that is that the political class, and I think Bill Weld is part of it, the political class is going apoplectic because they can't believe how well the Trump campaign is doing, and they know that we are running, in many ways, not just against Democrats, we're running against Washington, D.C. and the rigged crony capitalist system, which has been so terrible for our security and for our prosperity. So I think a lot of politicians on both sides of the aisle, frankly, are right now very dismayed and scared. And by the way, they should be, because Donald Trump is going there not to join their K Street cabal. He is going there as a representative of the American people to get real economic growth going again and real sensible national security.
All right, Steve, Angela, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it, guys.